which veteran forward not named Martin Ferg has been crucial to the Ontario Reigns' success on the power play this year? Plus, with the young team heading into playoffs, what is the mood like in the room? And what's the goaltending situation going to be for the Reign, who have basically a whole lot of goalies available to them? We're going to look at all of that today with Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign on this episode of Locked On Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Locked on Los Angeles Kings, a podcast about your favorite hockey team and mine, the Los Angeles Kings. My name is Sarah Avampato, host of this show. I've been your Locked on Kings host since the very beginning, covering this team since around 2016. So I don't know about you, but I'm excited for playing meaningful games at this time of the year, and especially a couple weeks from now. Also, big fan, big excitement for the Ontario Reign, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today on this show. Thank you for listening to Locked On Kings today and all week long. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day or your first listen when you just happen to open your podcast app of choice right now. The show is, of course, free and available on all podcast platforms, as well as on the YouTube, so you can find us there. If you heard earlier in the week, well, if you didn't hear earlier in the week and you missed it, go back and check it out for part one of my conversation with Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign. He is on the broadcast, he is on the Twitters, he is writing articles about the Kings for Kings, or about the Reign for Kings Insider, and basically is your man for all things Ontario Reign. We talked with him earlier in the week, talked a little bit about the Reign season so far, about the power play, about some important players. And a thing that I always like looking at is like the impact of players who have gone back and forth between the AHL and the NHL, sort of the impact that they have going back to the AHL. What's that like welcoming a player back, and what's that mean kind of going forward? We talked about that earlier in the week. Today, we are going to finish out the conversation with Jared, and we're going to look at great topics, including learning a little bit about how the playoffs are working this year and how the team is kind of feeling heading into the last stretch of the season. We're going to talk about goaltending. There is a little tidbit nugget of breaking news in the conversation about goaltending in there, so make sure you check that out. And we're going to talk about basically who's who in Ontario, and with so many guys up with the Kings, who's going to be needing to be stepping up for the Reign in the meantime. And we're going to close with talking about team captain Brett Sutter, who just celebrated a big milestone in his professional hockey career. But we're going to start things out right now. If you heard the last episode, you'll know that we left off talking about the power play, and particularly what makes the power play so successful, other than just, Martin Ferg shooting 100+ mile-an-hour pucks at goalies. And one of the players that Jared brought up at the end of the conversation was TJ Tynan, who has been really crucial on the power play, especially when it comes to distributing the puck to teammates and really helping make an impact that way. So we're going to pick up the conversation right now with a little bit more talk about TJ Tynan here on Locked On Los Angeles Kings. Being based in Chicago, I've covered TJ Tynan when he played for the Wolves for a couple of seasons, and so got to see up close firsthand exactly how much of a difference maker he was on that team and how much he was looked up to as a leader, especially, as you mentioned, a guy who's won a Calder Cup, who knows what it takes to get the whole way across the finish line. And whenever the Kings signed him, to be able to put him on the Reign, I was like, this is such an underrated, sneaky good deal. And I think unless you pay attention to the AHL, a lot of people didn't really, he's not on people's radar as NHL fans. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like he is going to be amazing for that team. And so it's been great to see just how much he's contributed. And like you said, he manages to get the puck to his teammates in ways that you don't see very often. Just so smart with it.
I think the thing about TJ Tynan, I've said this throughout the season, obviously on the ice, his skill level is basically unmatched at the AHL level, which is why you see how many points that he has. But I think the off the ice has almost been just as important with him, because he expects a high standard for all of his teammates. Like when you come to the rink, if you don't have your best day, you're going to hear about it from TJ. Like if you're on his line and you're not playing up to his expectations, he's going to tell you about it. He's going to be like, man, this is unacceptable. You need to be better. You need to be prepared. If you come and you don't have a good day, whether it's practice or a game, again, he's not trying to insult you, but he brings that motivation level that he brings and just the professionalism that he shows on a day-to-day basis makes everyone else better. You can't come, even if you're not on his line, if you come to the rink and you're unprepared, whether it's for a practice or a game, that's unacceptable for TJ. And that's just having that standard set every day from the beginning of training camp was, I think, a huge impact on a lot of these young players who maybe going through their first year of pro or their second year of pro, or maybe the only year they had was during the pandemic last year, and it was kind of a mess, and you didn't know what you were even going to get when you showed up every day because things were constantly changing. You know, they've tried to have more of a normal type season this year. It hasn't always felt that way, but they've tried to make it more and more like a normal year. And I think TJ has been incredibly important just at setting that standard of how you need to prepare to show up every day and be ready to go, whether it's warming up, hydrating, eating the right food, like all of those things. You know, he's going to give you a little glare. You're going to get the stink eye if you're doing something that TJ doesn't like. And it just makes you think about being at your best every day.
Well, this is, it's looking at the Reign and looking at this playoff push. You know, they're currently second in the Pacific, like we said, chasing down Stockton. Playoffs are basically all but inevitable at this point. And, you know, we do have guys in the room who have gone the whole way. So Garret Sparks, Martin Ferk, TJ Tynan, obviously. This is a new experience for so many of these players on the team who have had great careers in juniors or in college. But the last time the Reign had a real playoff run was 2017-18, where they lost to Texas. There was that one play-in game in the bubble tournament, but last year, like you said, was just kind of a mess, and no one really knew what to expect. Brett Sutter was on that team that lost in the first round in 2017-18. Jared Anderson-Dolan played a couple of games that year as well after his junior season left. But other than that, it is an entirely new team. A lot of young players, a lot of guys in their first or second year as pros. What's the mood like on the team as they get closer to clinching a playoff appearance and getting the first real taste of postseason for a lot of these guys?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think for them, they're not even thinking about it. I think they know that obviously the playoffs is coming, and they know they want to be playing at their best when the playoffs comes, but I think they're really just trying to focus on Stockton. I think the rivalry with Stockton has been budding. There's been a lot of games this year that have been 1-goal games. They've been really close with Stockton, and I think the team has done a really good job of just taking it more week by week. I wouldn't say day by day. I know that's a very cliche, but maybe more like week by week of who do we got this week? What do we got going on? What do we need to do to win this week? And once the team clinches, which is probably going to happen in the next week or so, you know, you can start making more references to playoffs. But even then, I think, you know, when you look at the way that the playoffs are structured this year, having the bye is so beneficial. You know, thinking about being able to skip a best-of-3 series, not only from a rest perspective, but you know, this division, even though in the standings there are teams that have separated themselves, really, when you get to a best-of-3 series, anything can happen. The first round is best-of-3, and everyone is in that 2 through 7. If you're not the first seed, you could get knocked out. Your playoffs can only last 2 games. So I think to start looking ahead is really tough. I think, you know, the most important thing is trying to get that bye, because you get to rest and you get to avoid a best-of-3 series. The next series is best-of-5, which is still kind of short, but you know, it's a long grind in the playoffs. The new format, if people aren't familiar, with the AHL Calder Cup playoffs, you've got the first round, which is a best of 3 series, which in most other divisions, the top couple teams get a bye out of that. But because the Pacific Division is allowing 7 teams out of 9 to make it, whereas every other division has either 5 or 6 teams that make it, the Pacific Division has to basically have a full other round of playoffs instead of just having playing games. So you've got your first round, which is going to be 6 out of the 7 teams. Then you've got a second round, which is the division semifinals, which is best of 5. Then you've got your best of 5 division finals just to see who can make it out of your division. That's 3 rounds to get out of your division instead of what most leagues are as 2. And then you got your conference finals and Calder Cup finals that are best of 7. So the series are shorter in the beginning, but that just makes it more unpredictable. So if you start thinking, yeah, we're a second place team, well, you know what? San Diego's a team that's in 7th, but they just beat the Reign this past week. You've got Bakersfield, who beat the Reign pretty convincingly a few weeks ago. You've got Abbotsford, who's kind of had the Reign number a little bit. They're a 5th seed. Like, you can't think past some of these other teams who have a lot of talent. So I think the mood around the guys is just trying to stay in the moment. They know there's still a lot of games remaining right now as we record this. There's still 17 games left. As we get into the, 5-6 games left, I think we're going to see more of a focus trying to shift towards the playoffs. And, maybe if it doesn't seem like that, their spot is going to be determined, I think they really want that number 1 spot, but it's probably going to be coming down to the last couple of games of the season for the number 1 and 2 spots to be decided. So I think that's good. I think it's always good to have something to play for. And, I think when you get closer to the playoffs, there's going to be a little bit more of a talk about that. But right now, I really don't think the guys are that focused on it because, again, their number 1 goal right now is looking at their day in front of them and what they have to do this day and this week. And then their next goal is to try to get called up. I think, there's so much opportunity with the Kings right now. There's so many roster spots in flux with all these injured players. If you're a guy on the Reign who hasn't had a call up or, you believe you can get called up, you're looking to try to work your hardest this week so you can get an opportunity to play in the NHL. I'm not sure yet you're looking at the Calder Cup playoffs just yet.
All right, we've got more with Jared coming up right after this. But before that, let's talk about Bet Online because it is a super exciting time of year if you're a sports person and especially a basketball person. That's right, college basketball's big tournament is finally upon us. So whether it is the latest odds, contests, player props, whatever it is, betonline.net is the number 1 source for all of your sports betting needs and information. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it isn't just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website today, betonline.net, or use your mobile device to learn more about all of the trends and the action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. You are, of course, listening to Locked On Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And thank you for making today's show your first listen of the day. When you're done here, there are, of course, many choices for you. But what you should do when you're done here is go to your calendar and go put in a little reminder because on Monday, March 21st at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you can tune into Locked On Fantasy Hockey, the live deadline reaction show. You'll get all of the on-ice fantasy and betting analysis that you need from hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone with appearances from our roster of local team experts. So the trade deadline is going to end. We're going to have all sorts of moves to talk about, and you can hear all about it on Locked On Fantasy Hockey. So make sure you go check that out. Now let's continue the conversation with Jared and take a little bit of a look at goaltending for the Ontario Reign. Well, I want to get to a couple of listener questions, but before we do that, one other question about the Reign as a whole, particularly looking at goaltending this year. Obviously the Kings brought in Garret Sparks over the offseason to kind of play that number 3 role. But his injury keeping him out of the lineup has opened up more time for Matt Villalta to be the number 1 of the team, and has opened up time for some other goalies to sort of rotate through that backup position. I know we've seen Jacob Ingham, Lucas Preek all have gotten games, and most recently John Lethemon's been the call-up, getting some time with the Reign. Anything you can share on sort of the goalie rotation? Any plans to get Ingham and Parikh back there? Just sort of what's the picture look like for goaltending for the Reign?
Yeah, I think it's been, just like everything else, it's unpredictable. It's a long season. You want that depth because you don't know what's going to happen. And, at the outset, it was a pretty even split between Garret Sparks and Matt Villalta. But Sparks went down with an injury in early January. So it's been 2 months, two plus months since Sparks has been back. He is skating. He is getting closer to returning, but you're not really sure what you're going to get. Honestly, he's been gone for so long. He really, has to get back in a rhythm. And I don't know if he's going to be able to find that because Matt Villalta has taken the reins and become the true number 1 goaltender for this team. So I think the players trust Villalta. I think he has been the kind of a guy who wants to be in the net. He wants as many games as he can. He's not looking to take a day off. If the Reign have 3 games in a week, he would like to play all 3 of them. Now, I think the team doesn't want to burn him out, but he has totally become the team's number 1 goaltender. And, again, if Garret Sparks is needed, if he is healthy and needed down the stretch, it's great to have him because he has a ton of experience. As you mentioned, he won a Calder Cup. He's definitely one of those leaders in the room who has a strong voice, who can help and who can win games. So you can turn to him. But I think right now it's Matt Villalta's net. As far as, if there's necessary a third option, if Sparks remains out and he's unable to return, I love what the Reign have done. They're making it just like everything else. You got to earn your playing time. You have 2 young goalies in Lucas Parikh and Jacob Ingham who were given opportunities to play, and they were okay. They kept the Reign in games. They won some games, but I don't think they were consistently playing at the level they needed to be and that the Reign expected. So they said, you know what, no problem. Well, you guys need more time in the ECHL. So they sent both of them down. And, John Lethemon is a little bit older. He played 4 years at Michigan State, turned pro last season. So a young pro, but overall a few years older than both Ingham and Parikh. And he's been more consistent. He's been more stable. So right now he's getting the opportunities when Villalta needs a day to rest, or if we have back-to-back games, they're going to consider Lethemon for that job. But if Lethemon falters at all, then it'll, maybe be another opportunity for Ingham and Parikh. I think, yes, for the Kings' sake, you want to develop some of those younger goaltenders. You want to have the higher end prospects. I don't know that Ingham, I don't know that Lethemon is really a Kings prospect. He's on an AHL deal right now. He wasn't a draft pick of the organization. So, maybe not as important to develop him, but if he's playing the best, you need to win games. You need to develop the rest of your lineup as well. So I think it's been great to see. And, it's really, Ingham had a shutout in his last game for Greenville. So right now I would say, maybe he's the next opportunity because he's showing that he can play down there. But, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, it might end up that all 3 of them are back down in the ECHL for a little bit because Garret Sparks is getting closer and potentially, able to resume play soon.
Well, having too many goalies is definitely a good problem to have. And I think one the Kings have learned from past experiences that way better to have more than you need, because pretty soon you're going to need all of them at one point or another. I wanted to move on to just a couple of listener questions that folks sent in once they heard we were going to be talking about the Reign. And the first one is looking just sort of generally at the players this year. Anyone whose performances has surprised you the most?
That's tough. I mean, there's been a lot of great things that this team has done this year. I think, seeing the obvious answer is Sean Durzi, right? Like being able to hold his own in the NHL for this amount of time is is pretty amazing for him. I think it surprised me, not that he was able to get a call up, but that he's been so consistent and dependable. He's out there in all situations. He's a guy that, at the end of the game, Kings need a goal. It's him and Drew Doughty that have been on the ice. So, that's kind of an old story a little bit, but I think that he has been incredible. And I think, to go back to the goaltending, I think Matt Villalta, I don't think a lot of Kings fans, if you'd asked them what they thought of Matt Villalta, I don't know that they would have been able to tell you that he was going to win 20 plus games and he was going to be totally taking over as the number one goalie. And not only that, the team has been number one in offense. So he's clearly getting some support from, as far as goals per game, they're the number one team in the league. But Villalta, his numbers are pretty good. He's 2.74 goals against average right now. His save percentage is at 91%. It's not like he doesn't have good numbers and the team's just scoring their way out of trouble. They actually allow a ton of opportunities. The Reign are getting outshot in most every game that they're playing, and they are, even though their record has been great, they're finding ways to win, which is amazing. But I don't think they've been as dominant, especially in the last month. I don't think they've been as dominant as they may have been earlier on. They're just finding ways. They're a little bit gritty. They know how to win. But Matt Villalta has seen his fair share of shots. He's faced almost 1,000 shots this season. The Reign, like I said, they're being outshot in most games. It's not like the Kings, who usually outshoot their opponent. The Reign have been on the other side, and Villalta's had to come up huge in a lot of different situations. So I think for him to, like I said, take the reins, be that number one guy, and have his teammates trust him so much. I wasn't here previously, but it sounded like he was struggling a little bit in that area, and it wasn't the case where he was the true number one and the guys were trusting him in all those situations. But that's really been the case. He's really taken the net, and on nights when he's not in the net, the team is not as confident in front of whoever else has been playing, and that's not a knock on anybody. It's just how good Matt Villalta has been. I think everyone is more comfortable when he's in net, and you're going to see him in net, I think, more and more down the stretch.
Getting to talk to Matt Villalta after one of the recent games, I think was really showed a lot about him as a player, and just how seriously he takes the game. And, when he talked about, I need to be more dialed in, I need to be more focused. And, you've seen that pay off in his game over the past couple of seasons, watching him grow as a professional. I think, he's definitely someone who, for me, watching the Reign, is probably one of my most improved players, of just seeing him so cool and confident in net, and knowing that this team is, ready for whatever comes at them, and that they trust him back there. So that's definitely been a really good one to keep an eye on with him there.
I know that, I didn't mention this person. I don't know that surprise is necessarily my emotion, but Jordan Spence, I mean, he is in line, potentially was in line to be the AHL's Rookie of the Year. Now, I don't know if there's guys that are out long term, he might be, but he's playing 20 plus minutes a night in the NHL the last couple of games. And for me, again, I don't know that it's surprised, but just impressed at how quickly he has learned the ropes and gotten better and been more comfortable in pro hockey. The first couple of games, he's playing limited minutes. He's not playing a big role. First month or two of the season. Definitely a more offensive gifted player who the team looked at for some offense, but he's gotten to the point where he's a leader on the offensive end. And I've been more just impressed with how quickly he's come along and, acclimated himself to the pro game, being that it's not that he's not the biggest guy out there. He's definitely a little bit undersized. He's not a huge name prospect that people were pining over. I think, people saw that he won Defenseman of the Year in the Quebec Major Junior League, so they knew that, okay, well, he's had some pretty good years leading up to his first pro season, but to turn pro, and really, when you look at that draft class, he's one of the first players to turn pro and really look okay at the NHL level. So great for him. He's an amazing kid, and just hope he keeps getting better. Obviously there's things he's working on right now. He's had his eyes opened up, but last night he's playing pretty big minutes against the Florida Panthers, one of the best teams in the NHL, and playing some really important roles in a win. So that was really cool to see, and just more impressive than anything.
Yeah, especially as a young defenseman, I feel like no one has big plans for them until they've been around for a couple years. So I've loved seeing him just jump right up into the NHL. And so with so many players getting that chance to jump into the NHL, and with these injuries, maybe staying up there for a while, that of course is going to open up a lot of opportunities for players to get bigger roles on the Reign, who maybe we haven't seen as much of so far this year. So who do we need to see more from during this next stretch of games as the Reign deals with potentially a depleted lineup?
I think the biggest is going to be some guys Kings are familiar with, but Austin Wagner, to me, is someone who's going to have an opportunity. He, did a lot of things in the game against San Diego. He's been kind of a fourth line guy for most of the season for the Reign, but he's going to be more of a third line, maybe even work his way into the top six. Now that some of the other players, even in the lineup against San Diego, which is the last lineup we have to refer back to, Ferk, Villalta were in the lineup there. So you take those guys out, and, to me, Austin Wagner is going to have to do a lot more and spend more time on the ice. And I think he's up to it. He's healthy. He is obviously an extremely talented skater. And if he continues to forecheck the way that he can, he's going to be able to fill some of that. I think clearly Akil Thomas is going to have to step up as well. It's definitely been a tough go for him this season with one injury that took him a long time to get back from in the offseason shoulder surgery. And then once he got back, he takes a blocked shot, hurts his foot. So that was just such poor timing for him. And I think timing is what's taken the longest for him to get back. But his skill level is there, and he's a second-round pick, and the Reign need him to start producing offensively. He has not scored a goal yet. It hasn't been a problem, but he's going to need to be, again, one of those guys that steps in to the top six. And then right now, Samuel Fagimo is still with the Reign. He's obviously a guy that would be considered for a call-up, already had one, but as long as he's with the Reign, he's got to keep shooting the puck. He's got an incredibly good shot. He's been really all around the puck, and he plays in all different situations. He's learned the penalty kill this year, and he's become a really important part of the penalty kill, which has done better as of late. They've had their off nights, but definitely certainly is going in the right direction. So up front, Fagimo, Wagner, Thomas, those are three guys that are going to be hugely important moving forward for Ontario with all the call-ups. And then on the back end, whoever's left, I mean, they just got to band together. It's not easy with, having all these guys called up. The only players who are around at the beginning of the year that are left right now are Cameron Gauntz, Helge Grans, and Marcus Phillips. So there's definitely a need for everybody to contribute back then. Clearly, those three guys are going to get the most ice time, and they're going to have to be able to handle it. Helge Grans is still a work in progress. He is 19 years old. He's obviously a high-level prospect for the Kings. They love what they see out of him, but transitioning to pro hockey has been tough, and he's 19. So any player, that would be a tough transition. So I think he's still got some kinks to work out, but he's going to see a lot of minutes. And the other night in San Diego, he made a mistake, and I said on the broadcast, it's upsetting for Reign fans who want to see the team win that he made a mistake, but those are the kind of mistakes that you have to make to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And for Kings fans who want to see Helge Grans maybe as a long-term solution in the NHL, he's going to have to work through those things at the AHL level. And what better time than to do it when you're, way ahead in the standings, and you're going to have to give him, he's not used to playing that many minutes, but he's going to be on the top pairing for the foreseeable future. So he's going to get all the time he needs to develop at a really good level. So and he's got a great mentor in Cameron Gauntz, who just was mentoring Jordan Spence to get up to the NHL. I do want to mention, while I'm talking about the back end, that Christian Casestool has been really good for the Reign this year. A guy who is on a PTO. He's not even on a full-time AHL contract, but he's been a mainstay in the lineup over the last couple months. He's earned his way up here from the ECHL, and he's in his first North American pro season as well. He's played pro hockey for a while, and whether it be in Norway or Sweden, but he's never played in North America, and he's got a good physical edge to his game. He's kind of a fun player to watch. He blocks shots. If you're coming to a Reign game and you're looking for a defender that you might not have seen or you might want to watch, Christian Casestool is a guy who kind of does a little bit of everything and has some good energy. He's fun to root for. So looking forward to seeing him get some more ice time as well.
He's even moonlighted as a forward. So
Yeah.
very versatile player there. I wanted to close with one other question from a listener. It's a fun one, so I figure it's a great note to end on, and that is about Brett Sutter, captain of the Reign, just celebrated his 1,000th pro game and just had a really neat ceremony honoring his achievement, as well as being a pretty quality Twitter follow if you're looking for some dirt on any of the Reign players who get called up to the Kings. Been pretty entertaining. Anything you can share about Brett Sutter and that celebration honoring his 1,000th game as a pro?
He's just so classy. Nothing really phases him. He's just been around for so long that I think it phased him. Obviously, he was emotional, but he was just, I don't know, just seeing him over the last couple of months and getting to know him, obviously, again, kind of a weird role for me, coming in, didn't know Brett at all, and, now becoming pretty close with him because there's just so many things that he's involved with, and then being able to be involved in the ceremony and everything that went on with the ceremony. It was such a lengthy preparation for us to do everything as an AHL staff. It's not the same as you see a Drew Doughty 1,000th game ceremony. That's a little bit different when you've got an NHL staff to execute that. And I think the big thing with Brett is just he doesn't get phased. He is so grateful, so appreciative, and the amount of people from every corner that wanted to thank him, be a part of it, send him well wishes. We reached out to probably, I would say 15 to 20 individuals to, hey, do you guys want to say something? Do you want to record a message for Brett? And you're not sure what you're going to hear back from people. And not only did everyone say yes, they all recorded a video. They all had great things to say. We couldn't even fit them all into the ceremony. The ceremony, you watch it, there was a few people that were part of it that were big in his life, but on social media, we had a couple extra ones, but I was just sending video text messages to Brett of people that recorded videos that wanted to be part of it, that there was no way we were going to be able to make that fit into everything we were doing. But it was just nice that the organization was able to do that for him. He's done so much for so many other people, whether it's players, coaches, fans, things in the community. But it was cool to be a part of, like I said, there was probably a good 5 to 10 people that recorded videos for Brett that I just sent them to Brett. They didn't even get seen by anybody else. They ended up not being public, but guys like Matt Molson were so excited to make videos, and different people that have been around the game for a long time were really excited about it. So it was pretty cool. Even Zach Boychuk made one from Germany. He's with Eisterbären Berlin. So it was fun to get to do that and to be able to honor Brett. And there were so many people that were part of that.
Oh, such a great tribute to a guy who's been here for all of the ups and downs with this team. Thank you so much, Jared, for jumping on the show and for spending some time with me to talk about the Reign. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope that our listeners come away learning a thing or two about the Reign that they didn't already know. For people who want to keep up with all things Reign related, where can they find you and everything that you do for the team out there online?
Sure. Well, first you want to be following all the Reign accounts on social media. My account is at Shafran, which is SHAF Reign. And then we're also constantly publishing stories on LA Kings Insider. So the LA Kings Insider website, if you go there and click Reign, that's basically my feed. So we've got a lot of things on there, a lot of things in the works. Hopefully, like you said, hopefully a good playoff run and some more memories, because it's already been a really memorable season. It's been fun to watch these guys, and hopefully they have some more up their sleeves and in store for us over the next couple months.
Well, thank you so much, and I can't wait to hopefully make it back out to Ontario for that Reign playoff run and get to see it happen right in front of my eyes. Jared, thank you so much for joining the show, and we'll have to have you back again once playoff time comes around.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate all the coverage.